A seller note is a type of financing you can use either independently or in combination with another type of financing. Essentially, the seller acts as a lender and you make monthly debt payments to them. Seller notes are very commonly used in combination with SBA loans. So for example, let's say you have a $1 million total project, you have an SBA loan for 90% or $900,000, you bring a 5% cash injection or $50,000, and then you have a seller note for 5% or $50,000. Seller notes are very relevant in SBA deals. One, SBA lenders love seller notes. It shows that the seller has skin in the game and that they believe in the business and they believe in your ability to be successful with it. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't want to offer you a loan if they weren't confident that you were going to be able to pay them back. Let's talk about seller notes in the context of cash injections or equity injections. Per the rules of the SBA, you can actually use a seller note to cover the 10% cash injection that you as a borrower need to bring to the table. So it's possible that you have an SBA deal that is 90% SBA loan and 10% seller note. In practice, not all lenders are willing to honor this structure. I see lenders most likely to use this structure for borrowers who are really experienced. So for example, someone who is buying the company that they already work in, or someone who has really specific industry experience in this area. What's more common is a 5-5 structure. So you bring 5% to the table, the seller brings a 5% seller note, and then you get a 90% SBA loan. Of course, there are other structures. You might bring a 10% cash injection, and then the seller offers a 10% seller note, and then you get an 80% SBA loan. Something that's important to understand is that there are different rules around how a seller note can be structured if it's being used towards the cash injection, as opposed to if it's not being used towards the cash injection. For example, if a seller note is being used towards the cash injection of an SBA loan, it has to be at minimum on partial standby, meaning at most you can only make interest payments for the first 2 years. Now, ultimately, the structure of the seller note is going to be a negotiation between you, the seller, and the lender. Remember, the biggest question in a lender's mind is how likely is it that I'm going to get paid back for this loan? So they want to make sure the whole picture of the deal makes sense. They want to be really confident if there's a seller note involved that you can afford to both pay your SBA loan and pay the seller note. So there's some negotiation involved. A lender might say, hey, actually, if we're going to do a seller note, it needs to be on a 5-year full standby, meaning you can't make any payments towards the seller loan. You can only pay your SBA loan for 5 years. So there's a lot of different ways that a seller note can be involved in a deal, and you can get creative with how you structure your seller loan. For example, your seller note can involve forgivable language or performance-based language. There might be language in your seller note that stipulates if you don't make X amount of revenue or X amount of EBITDA, or if you don't retain these customers in this particular period of time, then all or part of your seller note can be forgivable. Seller notes are a really important part of SBA financing, and I highly encourage you to discuss the seller note with your seller when you're talking about a particular deal, because again, they're viewed very favorably in the eyes of the SBA, and I think they also can lead to more favorable terms for you as a borrower. If you're enjoying this content, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out the links below in the show notes to see how you can get in touch with me to discuss your business acquisition deal.